From the EQC studio, welcome to The Top Step with Rowland-Smith.
How we going, mates? Welcome back to another episode of The Top Step. We are inside the EQC studio. Hey, special thanks to Emerald Queen Casino, the entertainment capital of the Northwest, for making this show possible. Now, if you're watching this weekly on Root Sports, it's your Mariners Weekly channel. Don't forget, head over to YouTube and go subscribe and go like whatever the video is that you're watching, because that's where you get all the uncut versions, the full-length interviews over at YouTube. So make sure you do that. Okay, listen, this is going to be a fun show. You know why? Because the Mariners are starting to do some good stuff. It is fun to watch, and they're starting to turn a corner a little bit. I'm not going to lie, man. I went from being on a radio station talking about doom and gloom, who should be getting the finger pointed at. Is it the coaches? Is it the players? Whatever it may be. On a Monday, and all of a sudden, the same radio station on a Thursday, it's all about, hey, man, we're pushing towards top of the division, first place. I can't believe it. The Mariners have turned a corner, and in my opinion, I want to say it is the pitching. We're going to dive into what the pitching has done more recently and what's important, something you may not quite notice or pay attention to, right? We're going to talk about all that. Also, too, coming up in the show after the break, my brother-in-law. I bet you didn't know that. David Aardsma. That's my brother-in-law. Maybe you did. I don't know. I married his sister, Amanda. We've been married for a long time. A lot of people know that. But David Aardsma, if you remember him, he had a ton of success here as a closer. We're on the same team for a couple of years. So he joins me as well. It's a fun show. We dive into stories and talk about a whole bunch of good stuff, what's been happening with the team, etc. But like we start every show, we're going to dive into what the Mariners are doing, what's trending at the moment. In this segment, we call the top trends. Okay, what is trending for the Seattle Mariners? What have they done to turn this corner? All right, yeah, the offense has gotten a little bit better. All of a sudden, Julio's hitting in the upper 200s. That's great to see. J.P. Crawford starting to turn into form. I love to see that. We went from a road trip off to Milwaukee and Toronto where it was dismal. It was hard to watch. Come home, a little bit of so-so going on, and then guess what? They swept the Reds. That was a huge sweep. They could take a breath. Then they went on to play the Rockies. They should have won 4 in Colorado last weekend, but they dropped the game. They could have easily won 4. They had that snowed out game. They had to make it up as a double header. But let's talk about what happened leading into that Reds series and what the change was. Now, we all know is the pitching, right? I mean, look, okay, I get it. The offense is starting to kick into gear. I get it. But the pitching to me is what the separator was. Now, when you're watching this pitching staff, we're talking about a staff that when they're heading into that series against the Reds, you're looking at a rotation that was pretty much ranked number 1 in Major League Baseball. They had a ton of expectations. You had Luis Castillo at the top, George Kirby, the former All-Star. You had Bryce Miller. Brian Wu, by the way, he's still coming back from the IL very soon. But you had a star-studded rotation. But what happened? They stumbled out of the gates. Luis Castillo didn't look the same. George Kirby had a couple clunkers as well. They just didn't look right. So leading into that series against the Reds, you're looking at an ERA up in the mid-5s. They're pushing towards a 6 ERA. And I'm telling you, that was the foundation of this team. Then all of a sudden, they get to that Reds-Rockies 6-game stretch. I'm going to use that stretch just because it's kind of significant. Now all of a sudden, the team, you're talking a 1-2-3 ERA, only the 5 walks, 39 punch-outs. So you look at that and go, man, they're throwing a ton of strikes. Now, when you listen to whether it be Aaron Goldsmith, Dave Sims in the booth with Mike Blowers, and they drop hey, they're getting good counts, right? You hear that all the time. Don't take it for granted. And I'm going to explain why. Yes, this rotation has stuff. I get it. Luis Castillo, filthy. When he's pumping, you heard Pete Woodworth talk about this last week. When he's pumping 98, that changeup's working, filthy. We get that. When George Kirby is throwing that little front hip, 2-seamer to lefties, filthy. But what about the counts? Why is it significant? Right? Here's the deal. I had a teammate. He came over in a trade after winning the Cy Young, and then he was pitching the World Series. His name was Cliff Lee. You remember that trade, 2010? The Mariners front office was all over me about, hey, get around Cliff Lee. Get around him and learn what he does. We had completely different personalities. But one thing Cliff Lee kept drumming into my head was, You have to be in good counts. It sounds super boring, especially when you're watching Logan Gilbert snap off a split, or Bryce Miller, and he's got that new split, and everyone's talking about that. But look at the counts. I'll give you an example. Emerson Hancock, right? His last game against the Rockies, 21 to 27 first pitch strikes. He was 0-1, or if he went 1-0, he was back in 1-1 counts with their very next pitch. This is why it's significant. You can get hitters out with counts. Yes, you can get them out with stuff. Stuff's important. I get it. But you can get hitters out with counts. Cliff Lee once said to me, he said, if I'm ahead in the count, I get paid. If I slip behind in the count, I get DFA'd. Two outcomes happened with Cliff Lee. He got DFA'd one year. Next year, he won the Cy Young. And he talks about being in good counts. He used to even admit, he goes, my stuff isn't even that good. But if I'm 0-1 on every single hitter, it is significant. All right, I'm going to run some numbers so you understand what I'm saying. If any of these rotation members, stuff aside, push the stuff aside, if they're living in 1-0, 2-0 counts, 1 ball, no strikes, or 2-0, 2-1 counts, they're not pitching in the big leagues, flat out. Now, I'll run some numbers by you. Logan Gilbert, in 1-0 counts, when he gets to 1 ball, no strikes, hitters are hitting, guess what, 436 against Logan Gilbert. So if he's spending 50, 60, 70%, listen up, kids, of the time pitching in 1-0 counts, because he's just trying to drop a 97, 98 at the top of the strike zone, missing every time, he's not pitching in the big leagues. He's not even in this rotation. A 2-1 count. You ready for this? Opponents are hitting 474 off Logan Gilbert. Now, flip it around. 0-1, they're hitting 250. That's kind of high, I'm not going to lie. 0-2, 167. 1-2 count, they're hitting 137. You look at that guy, oh, well, yeah, he's got really good stuff. Hey, but listen, what about Luis Castillo? You ready for this? Luis Castillo. Now, I pulled some career numbers just to give you an idea. Luis Castillo has some of the best stuff in the big leagues. But after a 1-0 count, you want to know what the on-base percentage is? It's 378. Do you want to know after a 2-0 count what it is? It goes even higher. It goes up into the 490. Luis Castillo can throw 95 to 97 with a filthy changeup. If he spends a lot of time in 1-0, 2-0 counts, stuff doesn't matter. So the count is what the difference has been. It has been ridiculous. So I just wanted to point that out. When you're watching a game, when pitchers, and this is what you got to love if you're a Seattle Mariners fan, if pitchers are living, I don't care who it is, if they're living in 1-0, 2-1 counts, whatever it may be, I bring this up to kids all the time, whether it's Justin Verlander, Aaron Nola, who just signed a massive deal. When Aaron Nola he's talked about it. Last year, when Aaron Nola was in a 1-0, 2-0, or a 2-1 count, opponents were hitting over 400. Roles reverse, flip it over, they're hitting under 200. You can turn 60 feet away from you, one of the best hitters in the game, you go snap 0-1, you jump ahead in that count, you can turn that dude into just another mediocre big leaguer. You can get dudes out with counts. That is for sure. So I just want to touch on that. Counts are extremely important, and that has been the difference for the Seattle Mariners. All right, mates, listen up. That was the top trends. We have got David Aardsma joining me right after the break, right here on the Top Step, coming from you live from the EQC studios. Stick around. We'll be right back.
I live in Tacoma, and I'm all about the action. From making a run at the tables to multiple pay lines on my favorite machines. Game time. The sportsbook is better than being on the 50-yard line or sitting courtside. And I'm here for it. Emerald Queen Casino, the entertainment capital of the Northwest.
Now, we're going to cover a lot in this next segment because I want to welcome back to the Mariners community. It's been a while. One of my favorite teammates, I'll say that, and he is my brother-in-law. We all know that. All right? I know you're going to probably make some comments. I did get some questions on social media. But welcome to the Top Step, David Aardsma. David, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on. Yes, I do get the random, hey, is Ryan your brother? Are you guys related? You got to get the hyphen in there. I got to get the Aardsma hyphen, something.
Your first year with the Mariners, 2009, you had a breakout year, man. I mean, you were basically, you earned that closer's role. But that didn't happen in spring training. This is what people don't quite realize. we're coming out of camp, and I remember Brandon Morrow. Morrow was the closer because he basically said he didn't want to start. He wanted to be in the bullpen. And we come out of camp. We got him. Was it Minnesota? Maybe 2009.
Yes.
Do you remember where we were?
No, we opened in Oakland and then Minnesota.
That's right. But I remember you came in, like Morrow blew a save, or I can't remember. But you came in and you were just straight, gas, throwing hard, just, guys missing the ball by 2 feet. And then boom, you basically won yourself a closer's role. At what point, I'm trying to remember, in April, how long did it take for you to get that closer's job?
Okay, so Brandon was the closer in 08, right? The closer in 08, went to spring training, wanted to be the starter. Totally get it, man. You're it. And so he's going to be a starter. I think at the very end, it just wasn't happening. It wasn't clicking, right? And so he gets a closing job like the last week of the season. It was between me and I'm trying to remember. I'm just brain dead right now. I can't believe it.
2009?
Sean White, no.
Mark Lowe, maybe?
Mark. It was Lowe. Me and Mark. It was kind of between us because we were both having a great spring training. I think they gave it to me because I'm a little bit more veteran. I just pitched with the Red Sox. We went to the ALCS like the year before. I got the job, and I was hot.
Yeah, but you were dealing though, dude. What are you talking about?
Dealing. And I think he was dealing too. But I think it was like, I was pitching and I was locked in, dude. I wanted that job really bad. There's no doubt about it, and I wanted to earn it. But Brandon gets a gig, no problem. I'm not going to complain. Brandon Morrow, he was a closer last year.
Yeah.
He goes to Oakland, does okay. I think he struggled a little bit, and I ended up actually getting my first save of my career in Oakland. It was like I pitched 2 innings. I remember I came in the 8th, then came in the 9th, and one. I think I got all 6 guys out. And then we go to Minnesota, and he struggles again. And then they gave him one more shot. He struggled.
That's right.
And then I came in the next game, got the save, and it was like no one looked back. I think then we made the transition where Brandon went on the DL, got back ready, and I think then went back in the rotation. And but yeah, man, like that stuff didn't happen in spring training. The groundwork was built in spring training for myself. But dude, I did not care who was going to be in front of me, what was going to happen. I knew what I wanted, and I was going to go out there and handle my business. And then unfortunately, Brandon got hurt, but fortunately, or like he wasn't pitching well, and then fortunately I was, and never looked back.
Did you go from the Red Sox into a situation? You mentioned you're in the playoffs the year before, going to a team like the Mariners. Now again, it wasn't like we were just some rebuilding team at all in 2009. But did you look at that and go, man, this is wide open here? Like going into day one of spring training, we like, man, I'm going to get that closer's role.
Dude, absolutely, 100%.
See, I didn't know that. My luck was right next to you. I had no idea.
Dude, I came in. I get traded. We're in the ALCS. Should have won the World Series the year before. You guys lost 101 games or something like that in 08.
Dude, Hey, by the way, Mariner fans, I apologize for David Aardsma right now. Please don't bring up 2008 anymore.
But imagine going to the ALCS champions to the worst team in the league, and you're like,
yeah, that's a good point.
Are you kidding me? And I was setting myself up to be the setup man in Boston. Like, dude, like, come on, like you're talking about being a premier spot. It was like me and then Pap and Papelbon. And so I'm sitting there like going, yeah, man, I got everything going ahead of me. I had a bad groin injury, so I was like, okay, I'm coming to come back next year, be ready. I get traded, and I'm like, there's no closure here. There's nothing. And that's what Z told me. When I get traded for him, he goes, dude, this is your opportunity to make the change of your career. He goes, you are ready, you're primed. He goes, you are in a perfect spot to win a job and to be the closer for this team. But you got competition. We've made sure there's competition. Best man's going to get the job.
Team chemistry, right? So the Mariners they were disappointed last year. They were a good team, and they missed out by a game or so, whatever. But this year, all the talk is about Mitch Haniger coming back. He left. He went to San Francisco. Came back. He's got like this attitude where he wants to be this team leader and everything else. But everyone talks about how do you generate team chemistry, and it's easy when you're winning, right? Like so, if you're just crushing it, like Grant Balfour talks about 2008 Tampa Bay Rays. There was no expectations on that team.
Don't bring up now. That's my thing. Don't bring up that 08 Rays team. Come
Oh,
on, man.
Yeah, well,
we got no brawl. They beat us in the LCS.
That's right.
Now
That's right.
Now you're getting me.
That's right. Yeah, you had Mike Timlin on that team.
Yeah, Balfour grabbed me in a fight, man. Like
That's
I was done. I'm like, that's
Hey, listen, he's gonna be jumping on the show a little bit more throughout this season. But hey, he's talked about that. We've seen video of it. Trust me.
Great fight.
If he flicks that switch, he's not stopping. That's for sure. But he talked about. He goes, "Oh yeah, man, team chemistry." I'm like, "Yeah, but you guys didn't lose a game. Plus, you were young. You didn't have the." But if you were in a situation like the Mariners, right? They're kind of floating under the radar just a little bit, and you want to generate that team chemistry or whatever. Where does that come from, man? How do you sort of quantify team chemistry? Where does it come from? How do you get it if you're on a team? You've been on a bunch of them, good ones too.
Been a lot of teams, right? So I've been played for 14 teams over my career and 9, I believe, in the big leagues. What I saw, it has to start from the culture of the top all the way down. It starts at the very top. You have to have a purpose. You have to have a reason why you're there, and you have to have a captain of that ship that you're just going to get behind. Every single good team I've ever been on had somebody at that helm and somebody above them in a GM position that just owns it, and no one can look at them in that way and say, "You're not the guy." They know it right from the get-go. What you remember from that 09 team was they weren't afraid to bring in players from other teams and let them be captains. Like Mike Sweeney,
dude.
No one knows, no one understands what he meant to that team in the locker room around, and he was not afraid to immediately speak up. And he didn't speak up in a condescending, I'm the leader role. He just spoke up and said, this is how we're going to change this. This is what we're going to do. And it was like, okay, done. That's it. It's over. And everybody in every role, and you can speak more about what was in the rotation, but in that bullpen, it's really weird because we were all new guys. It was John Wetland. John Wetland said, this is us. This is our culture. We're creating our own little weird persona out here. But we are going to get our job done, and everything we're going to do is we're going to be around this job. So don't be afraid to bring in a Mitch Haniger if he's the right guy. Don't be afraid to go out and find the right role player. Who cares what they do at the plate? Who cares what they do? Let them speak. Let them be that leader.
What happened to the helmet in the bullpen? What happened to the helmet, dude? Where is it?
See it? I got it.
Oh,
right
okay.
Here.
Boom, look at that.
Hold up.
This is not set up either at all. This is totally not set up. I had no idea. All right, he's coming back.
Mine.
There it is. Look at that.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Absolutely. I kept mine. I mean, I bought.
How many were there? How many helmets we talking?
This is the only one I have. Every guy had a helmet. Every single player, every bullpen guy had a helmet. So we had 6, 7 down there at one point. I think it was. And
Nice.
so that was mine. Mark Lowe, I believe, had the original, which was the Gladiator helmet. I think that was the original helmet. Then we had the Leonidas helmet, and that might have been Sean Kelly.
Yeah.
And so we all had all these different helmets. How ridiculous.
I didn't realize you had a whole set. I thought there was the one helmet that a rookie had to bring out. I'm butchering this whole story. I can't believe I'm messing this up.
That's what happens when you're not getting slapped down the bullpen with us, man.
No, I know. But look, you guys were, it was the crew down there, that's for sure. But it's important to have that, right? You've probably been on teams that don't have that, surely.
100%.
Oh yeah.
It's a big difference in just having that something that makes you guys an individual, like a group. And you have to have that. You have to have that as a rotation. You have to have that in the lineup. Something that makes you. And we had that with the Red Sox. We had the bullpen, we were playing music down there and stuff the whole time.
Right.
We all had our nicknames. It was like a pirate nicknames, and it was so much fun. But you created an identity that was bigger than just you.
Yeah.
Mariners, and that was all John Wetland, man. That was John Wetland's ideas, and then he let us. And Mark Lowe was the instigator, I think, with a lot of this, and we just started rolling. But then we became better because of that.
As a Seattle Mariner, what was your most fondest memory?
Oh, a couple of things really stand out individually. Was 09 actually throwing the last pitch of the season, striking out Michael Young, heater right down the middle. I think it's squared up, middle, trying to throw that thing as hard as humanly possible. And then carrying, Ichiro and Griffey around on our shoulders. Like that's
right.
So fun. I think what really stands out when I look back at those years was the camaraderie. I've never seen this. I've been on some great teams. The Yankees went to the ALCS. Red Sox went to the ALCS. Some very good teams, some really bad teams, some a lot of fun teams. Never had a camaraderie like we had with the Mariners. That 09 team, and this is, people don't quite understand this. When you land and you go to a city, a lot of times, like, you got your little cliques, right? Me and you could have gone out and grabbed dinner or whatever. And little groups. The entire bullpen, 7 heavy, would go out. The rotation would go out. Like, you guys, all did something together. The whole lineup would go out together. And then a lot of times we'd all end up in the same place. I remember one time, I think we all just messed up and ended up in the same place. And we all did an entire team dinner without planning it. And
yeah, I remember that. 100%. Yeah.
Ichiro didn't come out with us all many times, but I do, and I'll never forget this. He invited us to where he went. And that was something that they always talk about. Ichiro always just did his own thing. We did not let him do his own thing. We said, no, if you're going to do your own thing, we're doing your own thing with you. And there was moments when I think back with those teams was how close we were. I've never felt, the wives were close. The girlfriends were close. There wasn't a divide anywhere on that 25-man and everybody else that came on the team. There was not a divide at all.
I live in Tacoma, and I'm all about the action. From making a run at the tables to multiple pay lines on my favorite machines. Game time. The sportsbook is better than being on the 50-yard line or sitting courtside. I'm here for it. Emerald Queen Casino, the entertainment capital of the Northwest.
All right, a lot of Mariner fans are asking what you've been up to more recently. I know I've caught you on air here and there before, but I've caught a couple glimpses when I was doing a quick little Dave Aardsma research because I saw your show pop up. Tell everyone about the show you're doing right now, where they can see it, what it's about, everything else.
Absolutely. So I used to have a podcast, The Bullpen with DA, with James Koulianos. And so we stopped it when I took my job with the Blue Jays in the front office. But we started up again as Man Cave Sports on YouTube. We're throwing some stuff on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook and stuff. So look for that. But YouTube is where we're doing that. I also fill in sometimes on MLB Network Radio. So I'll be on there, listen to me on there every now and then. Then I'm running my own pitching business down here in Arizona, right out of my house. It's fun, right in my backyard. Growing pitchers. I've got guys, minor leaguers, all the way down to 10 years old that I'm training down here.
Awesome. Well, hey, by the way, when we get a chance another time, I do want to talk to you about some of that stuff because you had a chance to help some of these Aussie kids with me in Northern California. That's right. It was awesome, man. It was so good, and the kids still talk about that. So, made a massive impact. But hopefully, look, man, I know you're busy, but would love to have you back on the show. I know a lot of the Mariner fans would love to see more of David Aardsma. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Send more questions. That's what the fun part of this is. It's like you're getting memories and things going that we haven't talked about in forever. So I love it.
I agree. I agree. And again, the questions are good, and sometimes it just dude, you've already unlocked memories that once I get off this, by the way, I'm going to be thinking about. I'm like, oh man, I forgot about that. So good stuff. All right, David, I appreciate it. We'll catch you next time.
Absolutely. Hey, thanks for having me on.
Thanks to David Aardsma. It's always good to chat to that dude. Special thanks to Emerald Queen Casino, the entertainment capital of the Northwest. We'll catch you next time right here on The Top Step.